button, and I'll just admit people as they. So good morning and welcome to the meeting of the New North Transportation Alliance. Our chair, Raymond Mensa, who is the Director of Parking and Transportation Services at University of South Florida, could not be with us this morning, so I will moderate the meeting. So the New North Transportation Initiative is a public-private forum that jointly identifies and addresses transportation issues in the New North area. We focus on the use of transportation demand management strategies and commuter assistance to promote and encourage people to use alternatives to single occupant vehicle travel. So that would include things like public transportation, carpooling, vanpooling, bicycling, walking, and teleworking. And we do much of our work through the promotion of various programs. These would include best workplaces for commuters, bicycle-friendly businesses. We promote bicycling through the Love to Ride platform. And also we work with T-BARTA through their van pool program and their free emergency ride home program. So with that introduction, I think perhaps what I'd like to do is wait until after the first presentation, just in case there are a few additional people that arrive. And then after the first presentation, we can go ahead and approve the minutes from the March meeting. Let's start with our first presentation this morning. This is Mr. Brian Shroyer with the Florida Department of Transportation. He is the Multimodal Project Manager, and he's going to be talking to us about a corridor planning study that I believe recently got started, I believe this past December, along the 56th, 50th Street corridor, involving safety improvements and creating more of a complete streets environment. And Mr. Shroyer, if you'd like to share your screen, we'll give you the floor.
Okay. On my screen, it still says waiting for others to join, so I'm not sure if I'm in the meeting to share everything yet.
Yes, you are in the meeting.
Okay. Let me pull up some stuff here then. I'm sorry, there. So as she said, I'm Brian Shroyer. I'm with the Florida Department of Transportation in the Planning Office. So we have the study that we're doing along the corridor of 50th, 56th Street, all the way from the Selman Expressway up through to Fletcher Avenue. We've been going for a while. We have a lot of information. We're at the point now where we are developing concepts and discussing those and reaching out to local agencies. And then we have a planning an upcoming public meeting in August, at the end of August. So if I can get everything working here, I'll show you the presentation and we'll start there.
Great.
All right. Okay.
All right.
All right. So as I said, we're working on this corridor, 50th, 56th Street. So I'll give you a little background and information we have on the corridor. It's 8.5 miles long, like I said, from Selman Expressway up through Fletcher Avenue. It varies from 4 to 6 lanes through the corridor. Much of the area has the sidewalk and bike lanes already, but we're still looking at improvements as we go along to see what issues there are and what we can do to make some improvements. Speed limit is varying from 35 to 50. We'll get into some information on that a little bit later too. And the bus route there, Net Park is sort of in the center of the corridor study area, and then a lot of buses ending up there. So there's a lot of bus traffic through that Hillsborough intersection and 56. The reason we're doing this is this corridor is the 9th and 15th severe crash corridor from the Hillsborough County TPO and their Vision Zero action plan. It's had a lot of fatalities in the last 5 years. From 2016 to 2020, there's been 11 fatalities and 77 serious injuries. So we're taking a look at seeing what's the issues with those and what improvements we can make. Where we're at right now, we recently had our PAG meeting number 3, which is the PAG meeting is a group of technical individuals for usually the agencies that are providing some assistance as we do this study. We have the concepts that we're going to present today. And like I said, working up to the public workshop at the end of August. So eventually we hopefully have everything wrapped up by the fall of this year, and we'll start looking at what projects we can get in the ground out there. In the beginning of the project, we developed a purpose statement of what we intended to do during the study. So it's eliminate fatal and severe injury crashes and prioritize accessibility of multimodal options through design and operational strategies that support existing and future places. So we're not only looking at what's happening now, but we're trying to forecast what's happening in the future with land development changes and traffic changes, so we can accommodate everybody, keep vehicles moving because they're going to be there, but also make it safer. I said we collected data, so here's some of the options or issues that we've come up with. And there's different sections. So this part is about HART, the transit. Like I said, it's a very busy corridor. They travel up a bit through here with the several routes here. We looked at all locations, and we're looking at, you know, improvements that could be done there, making sure there's connectivity and safe locations, everything. So you can see by the dots on the left, the ridership, the bigger and darker the dot that's on the map area, the more traffic there is through there. We said there's a lot of safety concerns with the fatalities and crashes that are out there. There's quite a bit of crashes, over 3,700. You can see locations there where there's been the fatalities with the stars. Quite a few of the circles that indicate locations of crashes. There's quite a large number of large circles there. So there's a lot of issues that are happening with crashes. And who's really driving out here? Like I said, the speed limit is posted at 35 to 50 through the corridor, but you can see people are traveling much faster, above 50 miles an hour. So what we're going to look at is what we can do for speed management, some improvements we could put out there. There's quite a few vehicles that are speeding way in excess of 70 miles an hour, so we got to watch that there. Some of the speed management stuff we can look at is, you know, signalization, traffic calming devices like speed feedback signs, or just some planning sometimes, or narrowing of lanes and stuff that we can use. There's a whole range of strategies that we can use out here. Who lives and travels the corridor? You can see by the scale on the right that what is it, 2/3, more than half are of Hispanic or Black ethnicity. The majority of households have 0 or 1 car available. So we take a look at who's using what means of travel. If they don't have a vehicle, we're going to look and see what buses are available, what bike routes and stuff that they can use to make sure they can get around comfortably. We look at the age groups and the income of the area, because that helps us determine some of the features that we need to implement out there to serve everybody. With that, we took that to the PAG groups, and we had some meeting, and we got a list of questions and comments back about the corridor that we are trying to implement from the users that have lived out there and traveled the corridor daily. Some of the things we heard back here, I won't read them all. This presentation should be available to you later on, or you can always ask me for questions at the end. You'll have my contact info. But you see they have safety issues, a lot of speeding, as we said, transit, very heavy. See what type of improvements. It mentions here the BRT, a bus rapid transit, for the bus system to go through. Bike and peds, trying to make it a little safer for them, and what sort of land use is changing out there. The city of Tampa is looking at that industrial area through there. And Temple Terrace is really doing a lot too, so they want to make sure everything fits with their plans. So this section here is going to go through some of the improvements that we've come up with for the concepts. In general, we took some of the busy intersections and have some improvements that are being looked at. So this doesn't necessarily mean that these are only things being done or these all will be done at each intersection. There's some things that have to be worked out, but these are improvements that have come about. So, first picture at the top, changing signal timing and stuff to help the pedestrians get through a little bit easier, to separate the traffic and the people in the crosswalks. Middle picture, sort of realign some of the crosswalks to make them shorter, make some improvements out there for refuge areas and very long sections of crossings that are there. And then looking at some of the intersections at the bottom picture is trying to see what number of left and right turn lanes are needed, if they're really operating sufficiently, and maybe there's some other improvements that we can make by changing those. Again, here's the Hillsborough intersection we looked at. Some improvements are the green areas on the right are bicycle. So you guys may be familiar with the work that you're doing. Protected areas for bicycles are coming about, and there's a few downtown areas, but this would be something outside of the city of Tampa we're looking at. Providing the bike lanes, shortening some of the crosswalks and changing the right turn lanes, as we said, gives us some area to build within so we can make these improvements. Sly Avenue, right there where King High School is, a lot of issues. So try and reduce the crossings there. It's pretty wide at 120 feet, reducing speeds, and try and get the pedestrians across the intersection a little bit quicker so it helps with the traffic flow and backing up and making more conflicts in there. Now these are the typical sections. So running down the corridor, where we run into 4 lanes, sections, 6 lane sections. These are some concepts we've come up here. So this existing typical section for 6 lanes is what you see right here. It has 6 through lanes, sidewalks on both sides, a little buffer area there. So existing speeds are 40, 50. So we want to see what we can do to get that down lower a little bit to help with safety. Some of the concepts we have here, looking at some lane repurposing, taking away a lane to make the 2-way cycle tracks. That's one concept. One-way bike lanes on each side with a buffer area to help protect them, or just making a shared use path on each side where we can get the bikes and the peds together and mark that appropriately also. So, another one would be just 12-foot pass only. You keep the 6 lanes out there. Or again, working with Hart and transit, improvements, maybe make a bus only lane for the BRT system or something to, try to help speed the transit through there and allow for some better ridership, hopefully. Excuse me. Now, a smaller area, the 4-lane section, which is mostly like the northern area through Temple Terrace, you have 2 through lanes and some bike and larger buffer areas there with the plantings. Some improvements there are again, using a 12-foot shared use path there, keeping the lane configuration and maybe narrowing up the lanes and try to fit a bike lane within the travel area. Do some shifting around again with 1B to allow the barrier protected type bike lanes, and then a bus system through there too also. Now downtown Temple Terrace, working with them because they have their own improvements. Currently they have the Sharrows in a travel lane, so they have 2 travel lanes. One would be take them off, give them a path, to be able to get the bikes out of the travel lane areas there. 11-foot, and that would be keeping some of the plantings they have in there. If you did a 12-foot and put a 2-way left turn lane in there, you could also have a shared use path through there. But this fits within some of their improvements they're looking at too. You can see here, there's just some graphics they have going. A lot of land use changes to some apartment buildings in there that have come through the past few years. Next steps would be to present this information again at the public information, or public meeting we're going to have in late August. In the meantime, we're working to work with Hillsborough County and the cities and everybody to present the information to them, make sure they don't have any issues with things going further. And then that's the board and committee meetings. I forgot to update this. Public meeting is August. And then hopefully finalize everything in May. Not May, of fall, I'm sorry. I know I might have gone through this quickly. I was trying to compress a little bit of everything. There's 8.5 miles is a lot of information out there. So you can go to the project website. We'll get things updated there with presentations that we've had and documentation that we have. And you can always contact me at some means here that you see if there's any questions that come up as you discuss things or you just happen to see something. So with that, that's what I have for now. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? You can unmute yourself. I have a question. So with those different typical sections that are under consideration for the different segments along 56th and 50th Street, will there be different speed limits along those different sections?
Yes. So I know I went through fairly quickly, but all the details that come behind that is taking a look at if we move forward with a particular change, like a lane repurposing to put bike lanes out there. We have a whole system. We're looking at the context classification. That's the makeup of land uses, how we see the road, and we're working with target speeds to develop what we want the drivers to drive as a speed out there in the corridor. So we take all that, we start design, we have a list of speed management strategies that we can implement to hopefully get down to the speed that we target. Mm-hmm. So each individual area is going to be looked at thoroughly through all those pieces to make sure we are designing to a good speed and hitting all the safety features we want to have out there too. So everything's, as we go through, there's maybe sections that are the same that are a mile long we can hit and all one shot and it's all the same, but we'll look at each area, especially like I said, going through the county, the city of Tampa, and then city of Temple Terrace. There's a lot of different things that we're implementing through there. Mm-hmm.
Have you given a presentation to the Hillsborough TPO committees?
That's what we're doing up through the next few months.
Okay. Yeah, because I would imagine you'd get a lot of good input from the Livable Roadways Committee and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, right. and some of the few other ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's in our schedule. It's just timing, fit in everybody's work schedule and meeting schedules. So.
Yeah. I was also curious about the intersection treatments that are under consideration, and hopefully with lower speed limits going through those intersections. Any thought given to? I wasn't sure. Trying to kind of look at how bicycles would be routed through intersections. So bicyclists wanting to make a left turn, would they essentially need to basically navigate the intersection like a pedestrian? Or would there be possibility for bike boxes in there to enable them to actually complete a left turn from the outside left turn lane?
Some of those details would be worked out. Like I showed at Hillsborough, we had some bike boxes and stuff. Mm-hmm. How they get through, like I said, whether they're follow through with those the bike lanes, segmenting through the intersection, or if they're going to be the left turn lanes. I haven't really got that far deep into it. That's like a design issue and what we can do to help, make sure we put the appropriate thing out there.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I guess when you get to the stage of the design, there'll be a lot of opportunity for public input. I know, for example, at University of South Florida, I'm sure the students would be very interested in seeing what the design options are and provide input, because we know there's a lot of students that cross 56th Street south of Fletcher and along that area. There's a lot of apartment complexes through there as well.
And there's a lot of work happening along Fowler and with our 56 study. And it always comes up with the residential areas sort of in that northeast corner of the 56 and Fowler and, and even north of Fowler, that we're trying to, maybe put some shared use path and stuff to get a lot of area for them to feel, they can walk or bike to the school if they wanted to. So,
right, yeah.
Lots of things happening there.
Yeah, and I guess another thing that's very exciting to us is the multimodal study along Fowler and the options for developing that as more of a boulevard that can accommodate bus rapid transit potentially. I know one of our partners, Soaring City Alliance, has been working with the county with regard to the possibilities for densification along Fowler Avenue and the possibility of a transformation along Fowler from I-275 all the way up to, I guess, about 50th. But it would seem like that transformation will have potentially quite an impact on the operation of 56th Street up our way as well.
Right.
So all that connects and impacts those initiatives.
Right. And as we started the study, they were already working on Fowler, planning that. So we're coordinating with them too to make sure everything ties together and, we don't have a lot of conflicts with anything.
Sure. Well, any other questions or comments from anyone? Okay. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. We were very interested in this, and we're so pleased that we had an opportunity to hear your presentation and learn more about this project. Very important. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you.
All right. So at this point, let's take care of the minutes from the March meeting. These were distributed. I have not received any comments with regard to the March minutes. So do I have a motion to approve the March minutes?
Hi, it's Alicia. I motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you so much. Is there a second?
This is Marie. Yes, there's a second, please, Sarah.
Thank you, Marie. So if anyone is opposed to the minutes being approved, could you make that known? If not, we will consider the minutes approved. Okay, hearing none, the minutes for the March meeting are approved. Thank you. So let's go on to our second presentation from Hillsborough County, Mr. John Patrick, who is the Division Director for Strategic Infrastructure Planning, and Matthew Lewis, who is Executive Planner with the County Community Infrastructure and Planning, is going to give us a presentation about the East 131st Avenue preliminary land use and transportation study that was completed and the progress since that has come out. Yes, please proceed.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, all of you. A lot of familiar names with a circle on it. Hopefully soon we will all meet in person. I like to meet in person and talk to you guys one-on-one. That's the goal. We are in a period where we don't know if virtual is the best thing or meeting in person is the best thing, but we will figure it out as we go along. But we are really excited to come back to you and talk about this project that we have, the study that we have completed on 131st Avenue. It was completed almost a year ago, a little bit before that, but there are several things that's moving along this corridor. So it is not a study that's sitting on the shelf. There are several recommendations from the study, and as Matt and Rebecca goes through these projects. Hi, Rebecca. I think you're there too. Yeah. Rebecca Rogers is with Economic Development, and she is part of our team in this university area. She's almost a de facto ambassador for the university area from the county, actually. So, we have done the study. There are a lot of things moving, but what is unique about this study is that we started looking at transportation and land use together, and how can land use and transportation come together to make these projects. I love those graphics actually. Yeah, we have been for decades and decades trying to bring this transportation and land use together and talk at the same level, not just one at a higher level and the other at a lower level. So, but equal importance, give equal importance to both, and how do we address them simultaneously? That is what we have tried in this project. And while you will see a lot of at the very end of this presentation, a lot of the infrastructure part going in, I do want to say that we will be coming back in summer and doing the land use part of it so that it can catch up to the infrastructure that we are planning for in this area. So there are a lot of work going on. I will let Matt go through the presentation and show you what we have done. And then I will come back and wrap it up. And Rebecca will give you other things that's going on as well in the community area. So without further ado, Matt, you can take it away.
All right, thanks, JP. So how do we bring this transportation and land use together? I mean, they're, as you saw with the fish bowls, they've been very good at being next to each other on the same shelf in the same room, but it hasn't really meshed. So what we do is we take it from a different perspective. We just don't think about the arcane transportation and land use process or concepts or whatever wonky words we have to describe transportation and land use. We look at who's using this thing. What is the user of this road, and what are their abilities? Is it the elderly? Is it young? Is it differently abled people? And then look at the community. How does the community use the road? What is the makeup of the population that lives in the area? And what kind of culture do they have? And when you put these things together, you can actually build a road that fits the area you're thinking about. Now, this image here is not 131st. This is definitely not the road that you'd want to put through 131st Avenue. It's got all the pieces of a road that you would want to put through the area. It's got a nice sidewalk. It's buffered from the traffic with a nice and a green buffer area there. A lot of lanes, a median in here. It's a great suburban feature. And then it goes over here to a little shared use path. So the users are protected. It's comfortable for a bicyclist, but this is a very suburban model. This is something that's appropriate for a suburban area. I'm going to get into a little bit later why we wouldn't use a model like this. We're very good at creating it, but it's not the thing we want to build here. And fundamentally, you can never imagine this land use pattern next to it interacting with the street the way 131st Avenue is meant to be interacted with its land use. But you can definitely imagine, you know, the long-term widening of roads connecting to it. So we took the traditional approach to building a road, where you have the comprehensive plan and community plans, that plan for the land use and what the community wants in the future informs the long-range transportation plan that says in the next 25 years, we're gonna widen this road and do this other major intersection improvement here. And those improvements filter into a capital improvements plan, and those improvements in the capital improvements plan eventually go into design and construction. So we put the PLAT process between the capital improvement program, which is where you need to build a road, and the design and construction area, so that it informs the ultimate construction of that road. And of course, that leads to the moving of cheese. You have a lot of professionals that would say, no, we are responsible for this element of it. We are responsible for the width of the lanes and, you know, how big the sidewalk is and all those things. But it's really not the case. Those things are decided at the community's cultural, civic, and ability level. That's where that's important. And the PLAT process is designed to bring that in. So it's a three-step process, basically. The first thing we do is we understand our baseline. What does the existing infrastructure look like? What are the community needs? We review the community plans. We look at, you know, previous outreach activities that have happened in the community. Look at key stakeholders and how they use the road, and identify those needs, identify the character of the corridor as it is right now. Then we importantly look at how people move around, and not just the single mode moving around. It's how do people really get around on this corridor? Take a look at its market position. Can the area expected to produce the land uses that the various community plans have anticipated around it? What's the regulatory environment that delivers that? And importantly, what are the demographics of the area? Then we take that information and build scenarios to balance the development pattern in the form. Key critical, is it urban, suburban, or rural? And if it's urban, is it compact urban? Is it somewhere between urban and suburban where it's more a little connected but not quite there as urban? Or is it modern, suburban, or rural? And we use those ways of looking at it, whether it's connected or compact or modern, and organize the nodes along the corridor into a hierarchy. Where is the connected suburban node? Where is the compact urban node? And then take a look at the regulatory environment and ask, does the regulatory environment deliver the pattern that's anticipated in the area? If it doesn't, we recommend changes to the regulatory environment. We recommend incentives to help give it the ultimate outcome it's looking for. And then finally, we look at the road itself. How does the access management need to be looked at? What's the proper target speed for the road? How many lanes should it have? Congestion. We look at the pedestrian and bicycle linkages and how people cross the road. And then in some cases, we'll look at amenities and absolutely look at the accessibility of the road. This is because of the corridor, go back to that nice, pleasant suburban corridor that we saw and how the market responds to that type of corridor. Corridors are a major part of defining place. And the land uses evolve around those corridors based on the signal the corridor gives. The corridor is a permanent investment. You're not going to come in there and build it once and then come in 5 years later and build it to another entirely different land use approach. This is multi-million-dollar investments done in increments of 20 to 30 years if you're lucky. So here's an example of a road that could have been either suburban, urban, or rural. It's just any state road. This happens to be in Tallahassee. But the design of this road actually encouraged more of an urban pattern. You see the on-street parking, the narrowing of the lanes, it was put on a diet. And the market responded. This was planned to be this way. And it was a unified land use transportation plan. They looked at the uses adjacent to the road and designed it for what they wanted to happen. So let's get into 131st Avenue. You guys should know where it is and have an idea of types of users on this road. One of the important things to look at is the demographics. So countywide, there's 1.6 people per acre. 7% of the households are zero vehicle households. This area is actually one of the most densely populated areas in Hillsborough County, close to 8 people per acre. And the number of zero vehicle households is tremendously high, 31%. So that's already telling us that the users we're looking at here are going to be more pedestrian and bicyclists than is anticipated in any of those comprehensive and long-range transportation plans that are more general in scope. What's the pattern in the area? Well, going from west to east, at the Toyota dealership Robbins manufacturing edge, there's an industrial area. It moves into a little bit more of a connected suburban pattern as you get to 15th Street with a large fence pond that is on the surface open space. Then becomes a get more compact as you get towards 22nd. And then finally, there's a major institution, the VA hospital, anchoring the east end of the property before you get into the University of South Florida. So how do people move around in the area? This is eye-opening. We looked at big data, a firm called Streetlight that aggregates cell phone signals to see how people move around in the area. And importantly, about 50% of the trips using the corridor begin or end on the corridor. So it's not really a through route, it's a destination. And if you look at it in the regional context, it's obviously a destination. It's only 1.5 miles long, and it can only be it doesn't have a regional connection. So it's clearly a destination. And about 30% of the trips on this corridor, these are the automobile trips, are less than 2 miles or less. So those are trips that can be taken out of the car and put into a bicycle or a walking trip. So again, this is pointing to the importance of the bicycle and pedestrian user on this road. Looking at the market for the area, a few big anchors. You got the VA hospital that continues to expand and is a major employer in the area. It's one of our biggest hospitals in the region, actually. The University Mall redevelopment into Uptown with several million square feet of employment coming in, anchoring the east end of the corridor. And then obviously University of South Florida with a huge number of employees and students in it at the very end. And what that points to is this is the major employment center. You have coming into the area about 20,000 people work in the area. 11,000 people live in the area and work elsewhere. But importantly, people don't live and work in the area. See, this number is much smaller, 949 people that both live and work in the university area. So that points to an opportunity to bring in more residents that can both live and work in the area. So we took this and put together a set of recommendations. I'm going to start with the area-wide recommendation. And that's complete the pedestrian network. connect to Harvest Hope Park on the north, move off the corridor, and if you're going to do a pedestrian-only corridor on 131st Avenue, think about people needing to walk to that corridor, so improve the sidewalk connections to the corridor itself. Bring the lighting from top of the pole to something a little bit more pedestrian-oriented. Importantly, take those stormwater facilities, break down the fences, and turn them into amenities that share regional stormwater, because this area right here is in the plans, the downtown on this street. And this downtown, in order to reach what it needs to be, needs to deal with floodplain. The Duck Pond watershed is a very small watershed. There's a lot of floodplain in it, and this is the bottom of it. It's the bottom of the bowl. So there needs to be floodplain compensation in order for this area to redevelop into the main street it wants to be. That's one of the recommendations from the study. The industrial section is most likely to remain industrial for some time. The yellow area here is a neighborhood section that will evolve with more missing middle housing types if we can get the regulations in place. Talked about the Main Street, and finally the VA hospital will remain as an institution anchoring the west end of the corridor for quite some time. Importantly though, with the market growth between the mall and the VA hospital, improving the transit connections to those two are going to be important. So the improved infrastructure, starting in the industrial section, what we're looking at is a cross section with lower target speeds, 25 miles an hour range, separated bike facilities, separated sidewalk facilities, and importantly, this is a cross section that takes up the same space that a more urban cross section could take, so that as the industrial areas and the car lot redevelop into something else in the future, the road can evolve with them. This is a cross section that is easy enough to convert to on-street parking and even lower target speeds. The neighborhood cross section is more urban neighborhood in scale. In order to bring those buildings up to the street and frame the 131st Avenue, bring in the on-street parking, widen the sidewalks even more in this area, narrow the lanes so that you can have a target speed that promotes using the Shara. On the main street, keep that target speed low, maintain your on-street parking. What you're doing here is because you're expecting to have more pedestrian users, and that interaction anticipated in the plan calls for that more urban frontage. The sidewalk should be wider, and we're recommending a codes provision that brings the even more activity with a frontage on the private side of the property that would be more of your sidewalk dining and whatnot. And then finally, the current VA hospital, a cross section here, what it's really doing is doing everything it can to improve the experience for the pedestrians. Importantly, this crosswalk is actually today on the other side of the entrance to the VA hospital. Bringing it back here actually reduces the number of crossings that people have to make, and can improve the safety in that area significantly. And so they don't have to cross several lanes of moving traffic and turning traffic. So what have we done to date on 131st Avenue? Well, I'm going to start from the west again. And on 15th Street, You might have already noticed the speed tables that have gone in, the elevated crosswalks, pedestrian signage, and improved lighting. At the end of 15th, we're putting in some intersection improvements. We have funds for design, but not yet construction. So at 15th and Fletcher, there's a design coming in. Right now on 131st Avenue, we are installing some pedestrian warning signs, and we are drafting a PD&E for a complete street improvement on the area that will it will follow the recommendations that I showed you previously from the preliminary land use and transportation study. And as we move towards the VA hospital, a lot of the intersection pedestrian improvements that were recommended in the PLAT study are being implemented there, especially as you go from the employee parking to the actual facility at 27th Livingston and 28th Streets. The sidewalk gaps will be filled. The crosswalks are going to be better marked, and the safety for the people crossing the street, the informal crossings that exist there right now, will be formalized through that process. Then finally, the sidewalk on the east side of Bruce B. Downs is in the construction phase, and there are some intersection improvements at the VA hospital entrances that are also in the construction phase. So now I think Rebecca can get into a little bit about the Uptown District Infrastructure Plan and what is going on with that.
Good morning, thanks. Most of you know me as Rebecca Hessinger, but I still answer to Rebecca Rogers every once in a while. I think it still shows up on the iMac that I use when I'm on these programs. Anyway, the county's embarked on an infrastructure assessment and action plan study, was started last summer. And the purpose of it was to identify deficiencies in infrastructure throughout the unincorporated county area of the Innovation District. So right now they've identified the deficiencies, and we're into the what should we do and how should we prioritize phase of the project. So they have drafted some recommendations, and our county team is looking them over. We do know that the Board of County Commissioners has set aside $5 million to assist property owners with tying into the water and sewer that presently exist in their area. A lot of the reasons why people are still on well and septic is because they just can't afford how much it costs to tie into those systems. So we're hoping that that will be helpful. We'll look at folks that first have already expressed an interest in that, and then look at multifamily complexes that still might be on septic, which we know will improve the groundwater and the environment in general if they're on the sewer. So it's tricky because the city of Tampa, this is their service area. So we have to work with the city to make this happen. The other things are what I would consider low-hanging fruit: build more sidewalks, stripe more crosswalks, do a maintenance of the stormwater facilities in the area. And one thing that the consultant brought to our attention is the county doesn't control Fowler, but the county does control Bruce B. Downs. And there's probably a lot of improvements that the county can make to Bruce B. Downs to make it more attractive and make it more walker and bicycle friendly. So, so that's that project. We hope to wrap it up in the next month or so. The other thing that the county is involved in with the city and the Planning Commission is to do the land use along with the Florida Department of Transportation, which will be doing the redesign of Fowler. So even though the county doesn't have direct frontage onto Fowler, we know that anything that happens on Fowler is going to greatly affect the unincorporated county area. So right now, folks are letting me know if they want to participate, comment, be a part of that project. So let me know, just send me a little email and let me know. I'll keep you updated on everything. And other than that, I'll give it back to Matt.
So, so to wrap it up, so as you can see, there are a lot of things going on. The projects that Matt had mentioned, I put it in the chat so that you can take a look at each of the projects in a little bit more detail. And you can email us, call us, and we can give you more information if you need. And so 131st Avenue, that's where we started, right? So 131st, the PD&E, as Matt said, the PD&E study is underway. They are incorporating all the recommendations that we have identified in the PLAT study, which is a good thing. And now that PD&E study is almost complete. So they are going to be looking at an outreach pretty soon. We don't have specific dates yet, but we will keep you guys informed of when the outreach is going to happen. So that will show you the 30% plans on how the corridor will be, and the alternatives in alignments that they are looking at. So that will be part of the outreach and public input part of it. As we get that time set up, we are going to, right after that, we are going to come back to the community and look at the land uses. So the land uses that Matt had talked to you about, urban, compact urban neighborhood, all that thing needs to be codified so that it gives certainty for the development to respond to. So that is what we are going to be looking at early summer. That's where we are planning to start and come back to the community, maybe a little later after summer, so that everybody comes back from their summer vacations. Hopefully they can take this year. So that's where we are. The study has started something that is really being pushed forward with various different immediate safety needs, and then the long-term needs, how this place is going to be transformed. So with that, we are available for any questions you guys may have.
Thank you so much. This is a really exciting project, and a lot of, obviously a lot of thought going into all of the details that would make this work. Who has some questions or comments? You can unmute yourself.
Either we did a great job explaining everything, or I don't know. I don't want to think about the other part of it.
Well, I mean, one of the things that really jumps out at me is, you know, in the completion of this work that you have planned, and hopefully we'll be able to implement it, it really provides a great deal of connectivity in this area that we need very much. 131st Avenue is going to be like a gateway to the campus, providing much better access to the campus through walking and bicycling and hopefully transit connections as well. I mean, to me, this is very transformative. This is something that we've needed for a very long time, and I'm especially excited at the possibility for changes along Bruce B. Downs as well, and how all that connects. I have a couple other questions, but I just wanted to give Anyone else who might have some comments or questions first to go? If
Hey,
anyone,
it's Alicia from James A. Haley. I am very excited about this 131st Street. I drive that every morning to go to work. I love all of that. And I just wanted, the hospital the construction is nearly finished. They'll have to, of course, put in furniture and whatnot. So it will be opening in the fall, and that connector bridge will be all hooked up. So it's coming. It's very close. But I love everything you guys are doing. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
great. Anyone else? I guess one thing I would mention is I'm particularly excited at the close attention being paid to the drainage. I know in this area when it rains, the streets flood, and if you're a bicyclist or a pedestrian, you're in the middle of that. So making that piece work really well in this area is so vitally important to people who are not driving. I notice in a lot of the renditions, landscaping is part of the right of way, and which I think is really critically important, particularly to pedestrians. And I was just kind of curious. This is probably too soon to be, thinking in detail about this, but what is there a role? Is there a county office that is also looking at the feasibility of the landscaping along that area with regard to, is there enough green space to support trees, tree canopy? I know there are various, technologies where you build basically a kind of a root well for the trees, but that also limits, the size of the tree that can be put in there. And I was just kind of curious if that has been part of the early conversations about what the landscaping is going to look like along here that will make walking through here pleasant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is part of the PD&E study. We are also pushing our engineers to think about more ecologically friendly landscaping and how they can incorporate some green infrastructure into this project as well. Each time we bring up they say the cost goes up, and we say we don't care, and that's a push and pull of that. And definitely that is part of the conversation that we are having right now. Of course, the more appropriate trees have to be placed in these locations. Things that we have done since of the past, like planting oak trees in just a 5-foot or 4-foot landscape patch, that has caused a lot of trouble with sidewalks and roadways. And we are not going to be doing that, but we are looking at appropriate landscaping. Definitely, that is part of the conversation and needs to be part of the conversation. It's really hard, and for walking and biking. So I think that is definitely part of the project.
Yeah, and picking the right species is critical. In some areas on this cross section, you're going to have a more natural area where you might have the 8 feet to get a decent tree species to provide the shade for the pedestrians. In other areas like the main street, you're going to want more of a formal street frontage, and that's where you would really have to look at tree wells and technology to make the tree work more effectively. But the trees are critical. The landscaping is critical to creating the pedestrian bicycle environment necessary for this road.
I'm kind of wondering if going forward, if there are plans for community involvement or the businesses along the corridor, that there'll be some kind of I don't know what you would call it, like an adopt a tree kind of an arrangement that provides opportunities for some sort of community involvement, community ownership of the care and the maintenance of the landscape. I hear that it's it's very costly, but to me, it's an investment that reaps great returns if it works, if it's done right and it works well and is allowed to flourish.
Yeah,
attracts people.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think that is a possibility. Definitely adopting a street is a possibility, especially if you are creating a main street kind of an atmosphere and able to bring that market in. Definitely there is going to be that opportunity. The businesses will want to have a better landscape and maintain it better. So there will be definitely. I think that we are definitely open to exploring all possibilities.
One thing I wanted to add is, and something that someone brought to my attention is, we really have a focus on pedestrians and bicycles and wheelchairs and strollers, but we also need to make sure that we meet the needs of our business community that has trucks that roll in and out. And how does that fit with people walking and biking? And we can't minimize the fact that these very large businesses, they have very large trucks bringing them supplies and food. And so, engaging the business community on what they need to keep functioning and being safe is also super important.
Is there any special consideration for smart technologies in the corridor? Like sensors counting bicycle and pedestrian activity, EV charging, all those types of smart city type technologies?
That is part of the recommendations of our consultant. Since we are an innovation district, we should probably start implementing those things that will make county planners, city planners' lives more easy, because we can get data and we can prevent accidents, maybe that kind of thing. So that is a recommendation in the infrastructure plan.
Great, thank you.
Other questions, comments? I just had one other question or comment. I noticed in some of the renditions on-street parking. So is there further consideration about just parking management, how that would work in this area? Like, for example, would the parking be metered parking, or would there be some sort of fee involved, or some sort of revenue generation opportunity that could, the revenues of which could feed back into the maintenance of the street and the infrastructure in the street? Still, once again, that might be too early to have details about that, but any thought with regard to parking management along the corridor?
I think it might be a little too early to have that, how parking is managed, but when we do look at the land use regulatory side of this, we can't look at that without thinking about parking. The standard parking requirements that you see in a land development code of 4 spaces per 1,000 aren't going to cut the mustard for the environment that this area is planned to evolve into. So the parking requirements will have to be looked at. The on-street parking management, how that's approached as far as fee structure and pricing, that would be something that we'd have to look at with just how will the market react to that.
To add on to that conversation, one of the early on when we started looking at this project, it was very clear that 131st has a lot of potential, but there are 2 things that actually pulls this corridor back. One is stormwater. If every parcel has to dig a hole for stormwater, there is not much land left for development. That is one part of it. And the other part of it was parking. Again, if you have to provide the standard parking requirements in this atmosphere where there is a lot of biking and pedestrian activity, that again constrains how much can be developed. So the recommendation for on-street parking came not only because we wanted to create an on Main Street kind of a feel, but also try to reduce the amount of parking requirement on site. So those are the two big things that consume a lot of land: parking and stormwater. So we have to solve those two. And parking on street is one part of the solution, but it's not all the solution, but all of it, but that is part of it. Another big thing that we need to resolve is the stormwater. That has to be resolved as well.
Good.
Yeah, unbundling the parking from the rent, giving people the option, giving people don't maybe need a garage or a parking spot, would make it even more affordable. They could put more into the housing as a result of that. So adding that flexibility could continue to develop it in the character of the community.
Absolutely.
As well as to office and commercial, unbundling the parking and providing parking cash out to employees. That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. This is very illuminating, and we're looking forward to how this progresses and continuing to be involved in any way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Great. Okay. So we're at our point in our meeting for our round robin updates. If there are anyone who would like to update the rest of us about what your organization is doing, please unmute yourself and tell us about it. I can get us started perhaps. So the New North Transportation Alliance, of course, promotes best workplaces for commuters and bicycle-friendly business. We do employer outreach, the idea being that working with employers encourages them to consider the commute experience of their employees and to help them understand the role that they can play in providing a better commute for their employees, which is a win-win, increases productivity, improves employee recruitment and retention. And so as part of our outreach, we're working with Advent Health Tampa, the hospital at the corner of 30th and Fletcher. They are a nonprofit hospital, so as a result of that, they have to do a periodic community benefit assessment, community needs assessment, and I'll be serving on their committee for that. Previous planning efforts that they have done identifies the various needs of the community that they serve, and transportation had been previously identified as one of the top 10 social determinants of health. And so as a result of that, it's obvious they see transportation on the radar with regard to providing transportation for their employees. And of course, hospitals and healthcare facilities are always trying to find, there's nursing shortage, there's always difficulty recruiting and retaining healthcare workers. So from that angle, in addition to the transportation needs of the communities that they serve. So there's a great opportunity before us to do that outreach as well. Anyone else? I think Julie had put some information in the chat box.
Yes, Sarah wanted to invite everyone to our upcoming Best Workplaces for Commuters webinar. And so you can just click on the link and the information to register is there. We're going to be opening up applications nationwide on June 1st. However, Florida members can join anytime, and it is free for Florida members. So please join us along with FDOT and T-BARDA, and we'll talk about how you can get involved in all the great benefits Best Workplaces offers.
Thank you, Julie. It's Alicia again. Like I said, the hospital, the new bed tower will be opening soon. The crosswalk will be there. We have, which I've said before, we have completed all the parts for the new stoplight, crosswalk, and sidewalk in front of the hospital down to our pharmacy. We are still waiting on Hillsborough County. I don't know I think it's been paid for almost 2 years now. I'm not sure what's going on, but hopefully they will get on it and get that done soon. And that will make tremendous impact on those apartments next door and of course, USF across the street.
Thank you. Yeah, in addition to University of South Florida, the VA hospital is also a best workplaces for commuters. And you have a great van pool program with Commute with Enterprise.
Yes, ma'am. I think we won an award not too long ago. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So thank you. Anyone else? Provide an update?
It's Rebecca again. I just wanted to point out that the sidewalk on the east side of Bruce B. Downs along the university is almost complete. I was up there the other day and I saw that they had it coned off, so it must have been fresh cement, but we're excited about that finally getting done.
That's great. Thank you. I think Kenneth Bowden of T-BARTA, who is the manager for their commute options program, he has a Green Your Commute challenge that is coming up in just a few days. So that is an employer engagement program to raise awareness of employers in the area with regard to the role that they can play in providing a better commute for their employees. So it's called Green Your Commute Challenge. Anyone else? Okay. All right. Well, I think that pretty much concludes our meeting. Thank you so much for your participation. Our next meeting will be September 14th. Traditionally, we have taken a summer recess over the summer months, and so we will be back meeting again on September 14th. That's a Wednesday. All right. Well, with that concludes our meeting. Thank you again for participating, and have a great summer.
So thanks for all the great information and updates, and thank you, Sarah, for leading the meeting, and we'll see you on the other side.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.